This is From Anxiety to Love Radio, the show about undoing anxiety through A Course in Miracles and other pathways of love. Gain insights and tools to deepen your awareness of the peace that is already in you. I'm your host, Corinne Zupko. Hey everybody, welcome to our episode today. Before we dive in, I have a really quick announcement. We've got a Facebook group. Come share your insights, ask follow-up questions, and of course, extend love. You can join by going to FromAnxietyToLove.com/group. I truly hope to see you there. Again, that's FromAnxietyToLove.com/group. I'm so excited about today's episode. We are going to hear from spiritual teacher Frances Zhu about her experience in choosing to listen to guidance and to follow it, which led her to release fear and anxiety and find her life's purpose, which is to go towards love. As you'll hear, when we go toward love, which is turning to our inner teacher in every moment, anxiety and fear are simply released. They have to fall away. So let's listen into my conversation with Frances. I am honored today to be here with Frances Zhu. Frances has devoted her life to the practical application of the teachings of A Course in Miracles. She has followed a deep calling, leaving behind worldly temptations, and lives a life of divine providence guided by the Holy Spirit. This way of life is a practice of letting go of the I know mind and releasing the illusion of personal will and preferences. Her trust, honesty, and steadfast application of Course principles led her to a swift and gentle undoing. The message of truth pours through Frances. I can vouch for this. She's brought me into an experience of the peace of God just listening to her speak. Frances, I'm so happy you're here. Welcome.
Thank you, Corinne. Thank you for having me.
We're going to explore the topic of finding life purpose and daring to live in inspiration as a way to release fear and anxiety. And I'm so excited about this topic. So, Frances, I'm wondering if you would share a little bit about your story. What got you to where you are today?
Yeah, I had, grew up in China and moved to Australia in my late 20s. And the first 20 plus years while I was living in China, I really lived a life that was I can define myself at that point as a high achiever, really wanted to succeed in life and wanted to do everything the best and create a future, a life for myself that is, successful in every way. And yet what I was battling with constantly was this pain, physical pain and sickness in my body. And as a result of that, I was constantly stressed out and had a huge amount of fear around death because I was feeling my body was falling apart. To begin with, everybody was striving and entering their youth and vitality, and I was going the other way around. I was falling apart, and I felt like I was dying very soon. Always had this kind of fear haunting me at the back of my mind. And as the more I was fearful, of course, the more I wanted to do everything I could in terms of, the ways that were provided by the opinions of the people around me and by the world, like how to be successful. I would go for different solutions, medical solutions for my body, but also trying to achieve the best of the best in terms of material success, relationships, everything. And somehow I reached a point. That's where I actually moved from China. I reached a point that I looked at my future, and I felt I could see my future down the track, 10 years and 20 years. I already saw it all. It's all good in form. It's all laid out. It's already established. It's going to be a really good life from every opinion that I can collect. And yet, I just felt there's something that's dying and is already dead inside. And with this constant battle of the fear and the sickness, feeling like I was dying very soon, there was a moment I just thought, I'm going to leave this all from China at that point. So I moved to Australia, and from that point on, I just started to, had a very, very different life in form, even though a lot of the values that I had were still there in my mind. Still, like, I did an MBA to start with, and had another really good job in Australia, and kept moving toward that direction. And yet at the same time, A Course in Miracles came to my life, and something happened after I started reading A Course in Miracles. And I remember there was a huge moment one day when I was walking in the park and wondering where my life direction would lead me, whether I should go back to China or I stay in Australia, and what was the difference really in the end. And that moment, I actually heard a huge voice, and to me, that voice sounded from external. It didn't feel like an inner voice. It felt like it's a voice, that came down from the sky. I actually said, "Stay. There's something big waiting for you here." And it was so loud and so convincing. I actually just looked up to the sky and said, "Okay." And looking back, that almost sounded like a ridiculous experience, but in that moment, it was so authentic and real to me. I never questioned it. And I stayed because of that voice. And yet my life shifted from that moment on, because every time when a decision came up to me, I would ask the voice, like, is this why I'm staying here? Is this what I'm supposed to do? And then I'll feel into it, and every single time it is like, yes, this is what you're supposed to do, but this is not the reason why you're staying. And when A Course in Miracles came to me, I thought it was so huge and changed everything. I actually started to change my value system from the bottom up. So I asked the inner voice, is this the thing you told me to wait for? And I got the answer saying, no, this is still not it. And I thought, wow, what can be bigger than this, really? But then I just kept going with my course, and I felt the urge to start A Course in Miracles meetup group in Sydney, Australia, which I did. And I met a lot of people, and they all came to tell me about David Hofmeister. And I didn't really like the sound of people recommending me a teacher, because I thought, this is a self-study course. I want to do it on my own. And yet it just keep happening until a time that David, a friend from my group, actually was organizing an event for David and wants to post the event on my website. And I said, no, I can't post until I know who he is and I actually go to his event. That is how I can recommend it. I can recommend him on my website. So I went, and that was a 2-hour gathering, and I had this huge experience. I felt he was so authentic, and he actually had that experience of living the course, and the fruit of the course was completely lived by him. Like I have never, at that point, I never seen anyone who actually received the fruit of what Jesus promises in the course. So when I really witnessed that was so convincing. And that just started to take me into the direction of going to his retreat and had multiple profound experiences during the retreat and feeling so much love coming through me that I didn't know I even had it inside. And in the end, I reached a point that this calling in me was so strong. And I remember I talked to one of the people in his community, and I said, I really want to just live like this, like going to retreats and keep experiencing this love nonstop. And he asked me, what was stopping you? And I said, yeah, I had a business. I had a couple of houses in Australia, and I had a husband. I couldn't just leave and do it. So he just then asked me another question. He said, what do you think you need to do then? And I said, well, I need to close down my business and sell my houses and leave my marriage, which was, broken 5 years before that already. I was going in and out of that for 5 years before that point. So, and when I finished all of that and was about to go to Utah to volunteer in the community, I checked with the voice again, and I said, is this the thing I was waiting for? And that was the moment I received a confirmation saying, yes, that's what we were waiting for. This is the next phase of your life. So from that point on, I just started to live in that way of not having any form security or guaranteed pathway that was established, and I just live every moment with this inner guidance. And as a result of that, which we can explore a little bit more, actually I started to find life and vitality for the first time in my life, and a lot of the stress and anxiety got healed through that as well.
Wow. I have so many things I could say and so many questions. And first, I just want to reflect on the fact that your willingness from the get-go sounded like it was at 110%. Your willingness to listen to that guidance, not to question it, just to listen and to honor that guidance. And that really, really strikes me. I also am struck by how in your bio, I shared that your undoing process was gentle. And I imagine you experienced it as gentle, and yet to an outsider, it looks like it was actually kind of a big deal with leaving a job and selling your houses and leaving a marriage that you said was already going in that direction. From the outside, it actually looks like it could have been scary or stressful, but was that not your experience?
Yes, it was. It was a big deal when I was going through it. I was going through a lot of emotional turmoil because of the guilt and the perceived attack and the fear of hurting others. It's just all of that. And yet I have to say I had a lot of support and I can talk about what I went through, for days, but really right now when I look back, the kind of fruit that I received, the miracles that I received after that, and the life that I lived from that point on, it makes all of those intensity and darkness so minor. So I would say yes, it was intense only when the mind was still very, very split about what it wants. It wants a total experience of love and peace, and yet it also wants to people please and compromise and want security and want to be loved by people, want to please people. Yeah, it's just that was the hardest part was when we were at the branch of the roads. But once we decide which we're gonna go on, it's just gonna roll from that point, actually.
So once you make that decision, that's it.
Yeah, the spirit was really carrying me through all of that. I never felt I was alone in that. I'd always sometimes that was my constant prayer with the spirit, is that I'm scared about doing this, so you have to carry me through it. And he always did. I had so much support from people and people who are on the same path. And even the ones that I perceive I was leaving, at a certain moment when I was really feeling it was too much for me to handle, they would turn around, actually. It's amazing. They would be like, you have to do this. And then for a moment, they changed to the spirit to help me. And then they go back to the role of reflecting my doubt thoughts, because the doubt thoughts were still in my mind and they had to reflect that. That's their role that I assigned to them. But even that is just a cycle of rinsing. Eventually, all of that were cleansed, actually.
I like that word, cleansed. I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if we can dive into this idea of finding life purpose and daring to live in inspiration, which after hearing your story just makes so much sense that we are daring to live in inspiration and following that guidance. I'm wondering if we can dive into that a bit more and maybe share some practical ideas for folks who are listening as to how they might do that as a means of helping them to release the fear and anxiety like you did.
Yeah, I think, one thing I do realize after looking back of my journey was that all the sickness and fear of death was not actually fear of death. It was not actually fear of the physical body breaking apart. It was actually fear of life. It was actually fear of living, fear of the spirit, fear of this love. A Course in Miracles talks a lot about the fear of love, and it is so pushed out of awareness. So it doesn't feel relatable on our day-to-day conscious level. I always thought it didn't make any sense to me that I was afraid of love, because I wanted love and I would do anything to go toward love. But really, very, very deep down at an unconscious level, there was a huge, tremendous fear of love. And because of that, it was projected out, almost as a fear of death, but the world is just upside down representation of what's truly happening. So what I realized is that the only way to heal that anxiety and to eliminate the fear of sickness and death is actually to start living. Because the fear of love is actually very unfounded. And the moment we start to go toward love, toward the spirit, we actually are eliminating this underneath fear of love and everything that got projected out from that place. So the practical application or practical advice I can give is that we have to make that a goal for our life. not just survival of this body, and at the same time keep sponsoring this fear of love by setting up a life that is just for a self, or deciding everything based on the ego and based on compromises. We really have to start every single decision and every single day and putting the goal up front. The goal is, I'm going to go toward love. And what does that mean to go toward love? Because the ego has its own version of love as well. And the ego's version of love is people pleasing, is holding back of what you have to say in order to be safe and secure, in order for other people to like you. This is the ego's version of love, and it is not the real love. So the way to go toward real love is actually to go toward the spirit, and it is through his guidance. So his guidance becomes a means to go toward love, and his guidance becomes a means to actually reduce and eventually completely eliminate this fear of anything in this world, including death. So that's what I found the most practical way of healing in any kind, and the most practical way to be happy and to find what is your life purpose. It's just very, very practical, moment to moment, aligning the mind to say, I am going to ask the spirit to guide me. What is your guidance? And really ask that and expect to hear the answer from within, or sometimes without. The brother or people around you sometimes do perform a role that spirit assigns them to give you clues and signs. But asking is the first step, and knowing that every time you ask for spirit's guidance, you are actually going toward love and erase this kind of fear of death and anxiety.
That's so beautiful. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking of the times when I've had these experiences that open me up to the love of spirit. And I always stop and I'm like, why did I ever defend against this in the first place? Why was I afraid of this? And you're absolutely right that, this is the course is prompting us to look at all those blocks that we've put up to love, and underneath the foundation of the ego's thought system, what it's hiding is this love. So I really resonate. You said that so beautifully and so clearly.
Yeah. It is so practical too, because, we can say there is a very big abstract goal for all of us, really, is to go back to our source, go back to oneness in our awareness, go back to love. But that is an abstract goal. And when the mind is still split from abstract, it is so specific. It believes in specific. It believes in separation. And the spirit's guidance becomes the means to actually guide the mind from specific to abstract. But in the meantime, the mind actually can use the specific guidance. And every time we ask and we receive and we actually follow that brings the mind back to that place, to the source. So that, if anything, I would say that is our life purpose, described in a very specific way.
So can you repeat that one more time, that our life purpose is to remember love? Can you repeat that one more time for listeners? Because that's such an important point.
Are you talking about the abstract part or the specific part?
The specific part.
The specific. Our life purpose is to receive the Spirit's guidance and follow his guidance in order to go back to the source, to the love.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so as we do that, as we receive that guidance and follow it, that is bringing us back to love. And in that love, fear and anxiety just fall away. Does that feel accurate? Yeah,
that feels very accurate. The Course also talks about forgiveness is our only function here. And forgiveness is, forgiving everything, forgiving the belief that this world is external to us. Forgiveness is forgiving the belief that we are a separate body. And of course, forgiveness involves forgiving the attack thought that you have toward someone else and the perceived attack thoughts coming toward you, all of that. But that following the Spirit guidance part is also forgiveness. And if anything, I would say that following the Spirit part is the forgiveness in action. Mm-hmm. So it's, it's the same. It's one and the same.
Yeah. Beautiful. As you were speaking, I had the question come up because I actually was just having a conversation with a friend who has been going through a lot of fear and anxiety, not feeling like she's been living in her purpose. And with your speaking about guidance and listening to guidance, for folks who feel so sort of blocked with fear and anxiety, where they just feel like I can't hear anything other than this screechingly loud voice of fear right now, what might you say to those folks?
I kind of understand that because I was once in that kind of place where if people were to ask me what's your passion, what's your inspiration, what's your hobby, I would say I have none. I was so out of touch with my heart. I didn't know any of it. I just had my goal and I was going toward that. But for those who actually are so buried in anxiety and stress and don't have any idea what is calling their heart, then I would just say, really look at the compromises in their life and in their everyday decisions. Because those compromises are a reflection of where they're not listening to their heart and to their inner guidance. They actually make decisions based on the past belief and based on the desire to build a separate self-concept, separate identity that is a little bit more superior or inferior, whatever, or to please other people. So those are little clues and signs where, there are little hinges, but we don't feel we can do it. So we make compromise decisions. And I would say probably start looking there.
Beautiful. That's so helpful. That's really practical. I love that. You just mentioned something that I just would also love to talk about briefly, and that is the desire to build a separate self-concept. I mean, this is what the Course is leading us to be willing to look at and to release, this idea of a separate self-concept. And back when I was really struggling with anxiety, the idea of releasing a small sense of self actually felt pretty scary because this is all I know. This feels really real and this seems to be my safety. And so I'm wondering also if you have any thoughts to share for anybody who either might have some fear come up around this idea of releasing this sense of a separate self-concept. Does anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, I have something I think this is a big topic introduced by Course in Miracles, releasing self-concept, because this world actually is my self-concept. It's not just this body and my life. It's actually related to everyone surrounding me and this world, what the world is telling me. This is our self-concept. It's huge. And every decision that we're making is either strengthen the self-concept that is separate from God or releasing it. So there is no middle way really there. So it's one or the other. But this is all that we know, So how do we release that? That is such a big question. That's why we have to allow the spirit, a guide that is not of this world, to help us. And to think we can do it on our own is quite arrogant and is actually impractical. That to think we should do something to release it and to try to find the way, the pathway, the curriculum, and then that is actually going to strengthen it, because it's coming toward the same direction of a separate self trying to achieve something. And that comes back to allowing the spirit to guide you in your life and really ask for his decision, and knowing every single decision, no matter how mundane it seems to be, it is heading toward a very mighty direction. So in that way, there is nothing that is small or big. It is the purpose behind it that makes it very mighty and very holy. So releasing self-concept is not an individual endeavor, and there is really no need to actually start to get fearful about it. Spirit has a very, very gentle way to help us to do that. And in my own example, it's just it's gradual, and it is very, very gentle. In my experience, no matter what outside people perceive, it is gentle. In my own experience, it's very, very loving, actually.
It was gentle in mine too, so I can be another voice to assure folks that it can absolutely be this gentle process. And I guess another thought that just comes up that I just wanted to share was that strengthening the self-concept is really where anxiety and fear lies, right? So
yes.
We have it reversed. Of course, we're going to think it's different in this world, but the more we strengthen the sense of separate self, that's where fear comes from. And in the Sunday night study group that I facilitate, we just read a part in the course about asking the question, what am I? And not asking that of the ego and looking to the world to answer that question, but instead asking spirit, asking for that guidance. What am I? And in your bio, you spoke to that perfectly about releasing I love how you called it the I know mind, the part of our minds that, I know what that is. And if we can instead just open and saying, I don't know, that's a big space to enter into.
Yes. And that's why, I really want to emphasize the guidance part, because you cannot hold an I know mind and following the guidance. I mean, at the beginning, that's where the struggle is. You have an I know mind and then receive the guidance, and then we'll have an internal battle. I don't think this is going to help. I don't really see the point of going there. Why do you guide me? This doesn't make any logical sense. That's all fine. But eventually, once we are convinced that the guidance actually leads us toward a peaceful experience every single time, then every time we follow the guidance, we release the I know mind in that moment, every single time. So that is where, in my experience, the I know mind and past references, knowledge, beliefs are all released in that simple listen and follow step.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that was just so helpful. And I do have some final questions to ask, but before we go there, I'm just wondering if there's anything else you felt moved to share.
Yeah, I think I just want to mention one more thing. The stress and anxiety and the self-concept, they all look really big, when we're in it. And there seems to be, this confusion of how to do it and everything. But I just want to say it is the goal that is more important than the how, because the how is the blank slate. We have to allow our mind to receive the how, and yet the what is what we have to choose. If we choose the Spirit's guidance as the what in every single decision, then the how is going to be given. The how to lead us out of stress, lead us out of sickness, lead us out of the perception of, death is possible. All of that is going to be given us. And it's quite simple. It's just for us to tap into that willingness to say, this is the most important thing. I really just want someone, this really wise guy that is at the end of time, that is outside of this confusing world, to actually guide me.
Beautiful. I'm wondering if you have a takeaway that you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Yes, I think really it comes down to every decision that we make. So I feel we need to be very, very practical, and this course is extremely practical. It's really not about mighty ideas. So the takeaway I want everyone to have and remember is that every decision you make is either to strengthen the self-concept or let it go. So every decision is a chance for you to remember, let me ask Spirit and let me come back to love. So it really comes down to our everyday life. And it's very, very simple. I think asking is the most important step at the beginning. So my advice is just remember to ask in the decision-making process.
I wish you could see me right now because I have such a big smile on my face. It's so helpful. So helpful. And Frances, you mentioned, I love before, just going back to what you said about the how is the blank slate. And the blank slate, a term for that is Tabula Rasa. And I'm wondering if you can just tell us about Tabula Rasa Mystery School and also the documentary that you're working on.
Yes, we had our first Tabula Rasa Mystery School in May 2017. 20 people from across the world actually came to the monastery to live with us for a whole month. And what happened was that we allowed the whole 30 day to be a blank slate, and just allow the Spirit to guide us moment to moment. And every day when we start the day, the facilitators of the school actually came together and prayed together, really just to receive the guidance. And we didn't really need to know the specific issues of the participants because they don't really know the issues, even though there are some surfacey problems that they came to resolve. But the issues are always deeper. So we just really allow the Spirit to guide us. So we moved and flowed as a whole, and Spirit is the surgeon, and the facilitators were just nurses. We allow the Spirit to come through and tell us exactly, what to do and what to facilitate. And everything unfolded, and people's mind and heart just opened up in a way that they couldn't imagine. And healing happened, transformation happened in that space, and in the orchestration by the Spirit. And we plan to have that once a year. The next one will be September next year, September 2018, in the monastery.
Beautiful. And so then the documentary is about participants' experiences?
Yes, the documentary, I received the inspiration 6 years ago, and I always want to bring something to people, like this inner work that that spirit, how the spirit is working with us. It's so loving and it's so miraculous. I felt, I really have this call and this passion to bring this and showcase, how healing can happen, how we can go about this. And yet, Spirit had me wait until that moment when 20 people came, and he said that would be the backdrop that we can capture that and showcase. So, but really for me and for the movie team, it's never really about what external to capture, because the movie team of 10 came together and there was a huge amount of healing just by following the Spirit's guidance from moment to moment as a team. The I know mind, the fear of love, the fear of going toward, and fear of being transparent, they all came up to be healed. So for us, it was a huge transformational time, just as the participants of the mystery school. And if anything, I see this documentary as nothing but just healing happens and happens in front of the camera, behind the camera, and all around. And it's just, whatever gonna come forth is just what the Spirit wants to showcase.
Wow. Well, I shared with you before, and I'll say it again, that just watching the trailer again brought me into this experience where I just watched it, and by the end of it just had tears in my eyes. So I'm so excited to see the final product.
Yes, I'm very excited too, because I have no idea how he wants to tell the story. There is a big story to tell. I have no idea how. So I'm just as excited as you and as everybody. I asked the Spirit to tell me which footage to choose every day, and we'll see what unfolds.
Awesome. Frances, this has been so helpful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I so am just overflowing with gratitude.
Oh, thank you, Corinne. Thank you for having this platform, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to just share all these experiences, this profound and loving message that Spirit wants us to all live in. Thank you.
And to allow anxiety to fall away. Yay.
Yes, absolutely. This is truly from anxiety to love, from fear to love, from death to life,
Yeah, it really is. Frances moves me. She is truly a messenger of peace, and I just love listening to her speak. It was really hard for me to narrow down some takeaways because there were so many good points that she brought up. So I have 2 takeaways and then 2 additional points that I want to address. So takeaway number 1, every decision strengthens the self-concept or releases it. As Frances said, this is a big topic because the whole world is a self-concept. Yet a specific course quote comes to mind for me, and it's from Lesson 47 in A Course in Miracles, and it says, "If you are trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful." So the world teaches us to trust in our own strength, to trust in our self-concept, yet this increases fear. It's in being willing to release this lowercase s self that we come to know our capital S self. And as Frances so clearly said, releasing the self-concept is not an endeavor we can embark upon by ourselves. We need a guide outside of the closed loop ego thought system to help us. So this is Spirit, this is our inner teacher who will gently lead the way. Takeaway number 2. You cannot hold the I know mind and follow guidance. I absolutely love how Frances said this. You cannot hold the I know mind, the part of the mind that thinks it knows, and follow guidance. This is where the struggle will happen. So we have to be willing to question everything and be open to the idea of I do not know what anything is for. And that's a direct quote from the Course. So now the first point that I want to address is about hearing guidance. Frances spoke a lot about asking and listening. So I'm wondering if you're thinking that you might have trouble from time to time hearing that guidance. And if so, that's why I wanted to address this. I suspect I'm going to have a show about this topic in the future, but for now, I wanted to share that my friend and teacher, John Mark Stroud, has said that we don't have a listening problem. We listen to the ego just fine, and we do it all the time. We have a choosing problem. And this ties into what Frances was saying, in that we're actually afraid of the love of spirit. And this is an unconscious fear. If we are unconsciously afraid of this love, of course we're going to have trouble hearing it. So if you think you can't hear spirit, here are just some quick suggestions. You can ask for spirit's help in seeing your fear of love differently. Frances emphasized that this asking is always the first step. And unconscious fears surface as we're ready to look at them with spirit. Another idea is to grab your journal. If you have something you need guidance on, write the question on paper. Ask spirit to answer through your pen. Free write, free associate, and see what comes through. Another idea, engage with the lessons in the workbook of A Course in Miracles. It's a course in mind training, and it will help you learn to listen. And another suggestion is just to try taking something like a mindfulness meditation class. Mindfulness has helped my monkey mind tremendously. It's improved my focus, so I can choose to bring my attention to spirit more easily. The second point I wanted to address, because I know how the anxious mind works, if you noticed any fear when Frances was sharing her story in which she was guided to leave her job, sell her houses, and leave her marriage, you may have had the thought, what if I'm going to be guided to do something I don't want to do? And if you had any fear surrounding this, if you had that thought, I want you to check out the section in A Course in Miracles in the back of the book in the Manual for Teachers. It's called, Are Changes Required in the Life Situation of God's Teachers? It's a fabulous section, and just to give you two quick quotes, it says that changes are required in the minds of God's teachers. And then it goes on to say, by far, the majority are given a slowly evolving training program. So although Frances's life seemed to change dramatically, I know you heard the peace in her voice, that every intense experience was minor compared to the joy and peace she now lives in. So my final recap, our life purpose is to follow Spirit's guidance, which will ultimately bring our mind back to our source, from the specific and concrete to love and the abstract. Let's dare each other to live in inspiration and see how happy it makes us. As I used to say when I was little, I triple double dog dare you. Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode of From Anxiety to Love Radio, please share it on social media. Head over to our home base at FromAnxietyToLove.com for show notes and more resources. Also, if you love the show, please give us a rating on iTunes, write a review, and hit subscribe so we can reach more people who are dedicated to healing the mind. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.